Earth, once vibrant and alive, is now dying. Extreme weather, in all its destructive forms, is now upon us, all as a result of global warming caused by the crass, selfish actions by the very humans that call this planet their home. Elves have been introduced to help the humans repair their planet. However, they bring with them the most powerful wand in the cosmos, Elvina. But Elvina has attracted many dark and dangerous species from all corners of the cosmos that will stop at nothing to possess her. Is it too late for the elves to protect the humans from these entities and restore Earth to its former glory? Even the scriptures have no answer. It seems that only time will tell.
Welcome to Uncut with Lucia. Today we'll be talking to Michael Ross. Michael is an actor, writer, and has published 27 books. So welcome, Michael, to Uncut with me, Lucia.
Well, it's a great pleasure to be with you, Lucia. I've been looking forward to this. So, yeah, it's a great, great pleasure.
Thank you. And Michael, you are almost like a jack of all trades with all the different roles you have.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what the secret is, Lucia. You have to live as long as I have, and then you got the chance to try many things in your life. But I think the secret for me is that I've not been one for sitting in a chair, twiddling my thumbs and watching the birds fly in the sky. I like to be doing things. I've always, I'm an opportunist for the nicer things in life. That's the best way maybe to put it. So, and of course, not everything has worked, but I would say the majority of it has. And that journey, because it's a journey we all take when we try different things, has meant that I've met some amazing people like yourself and others around the world. And I've traveled. I've been lucky because I've managed to travel a lot too, when I was a young child as well with my parents. So all that is all part of these life experiences. And then it makes you into a more rounded person, maybe. But yeah, I probably have done quite a few things. They're not all perfect, but yeah, I've enjoyed my journey, if you like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super important when you enjoy. And Michael, can you tell us more about what you were doing before becoming a writer?
Oh, well, yes. I mean, I was doing, well, I started off life as a scientist. But, you know, as a scientist, I was working with bacteria and fungi, and I'm a people person. And I can't share a joke with a bacteria. It doesn't understand. I get nothing back from it, no feedback. And I realized I wasn't really an academic. I did it. So I've got a PhD, but I didn't really enjoy it. So I decided to become an actor. And through that, I also was qualified to be a hairdresser. So I had a number of hair and beauty salons that kept me going in the early days of acting when I was trying to build up. And then, yeah, I became an actor, really. And that I enjoyed very much. I did 17 years of theatre. And then I went on to television, did most of the soaps in the UK. And then went on to doing feature films, which I really enjoyed.
Well, there are so many things that you've been doing. You're also an UFO investigator.
Well, that was just a little interest, a hobby of mine. And because I've always believed we can't be the only ones. Surely in such a great expanse out there, can we be the only ones? So I joined a very well-known group, which was close to me, called the Manchester Ufo Society. And the lady that ran it then, a very, very clever lady, who's the world expert on crop circles. if anybody's seen these amazing circles that are designed in wheat fields. And she's an expert on that. So I joined up. I went on a 6-month course to learn about all things to do with stars and planets and so on. And then I started investigating. I used to get cases and I would go and investigate sightings that people had had. Out of all the sightings I investigated, I could explain most of them as natural phenomena that we mistake as aliens. But there were 5% that I could never, ever explain.
5% is a lot.
And out of all the sightings I did, yeah, it was a lot. And some of the evidence they had, we used to get checked with, for example, Kodak and NASA. You know, they have amazing laboratories there that can check if things have been conjured up or made or false claims. But, you know, that 5% were all very, very genuine. And they said, no, that's as real as it comes. So there you are.
Wow. I'm very curious about UFOs as well. And
yeah,
Michael, you told me you write for 6 hours non-stop. Yes.
Well, not all the time. I'm an author that writes by the seat of his pants. And that means I don't really plan things out. I will have an idea. I have a little map on my wall of with little images on it. And I will look at one of the images. I will sit down and I will start writing a story. The characters come in my head. The world building all seems to happen. And this is where my acting helped, because I was a method actor. So I get to know the characters really well. I can tell you where they would like to go on vacation, what they like to eat, what time they get up, and so on. So I know them inside out. Now, it's okay writing books about humans, but then in my fantasy books, I bring and introduce elves. So what happens there? How do you build up a character who's an elf and make sure that they're quite different from all the other elves that are in your story? And that's the thing that I was worried with at first. But no, I've got my characters who are elves, and they're very real to me, and they've got their own personalities, their likes, their dislikes, and so on. But there's one immutable fact that's come in all my books, that love to a human is the same thing as love to an elf. So that is something that is that crosses over, and that's quite nice because it helps my stories develop.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think is the most challenging aspect of being an author?
Again, because I'm a pantser, I do have lots of friends who are authors who are what I call them proper authors, people who will plan everything out. And they have times when they sit down with a piece of paper and they get their pen and they can't think of what to write, you know, and they try and they do one line and it's no good. That's never been a problem for me. I know it's a challenge for lots of people, but I can just sit down and write. The big challenge, I guess, for me writing is, and I think this is the same for every author, that you can do well. You can learn how to format a book. You can learn how to write it out. You can learn to edit your book. Every aspect of book writing you can do. Then we have, it's like on the Grand Canyon. On one side of the Grand Canyon, there's all us authors, me, you, and everybody else who may be looking at this. There's all the authors here. Now, you want to be a bestseller or have that book so that everybody wants to buy it. They're across the Grand Canyon. And it's just getting over there that is the big challenge, is marketing that book. And there's a way to do it, and it's really specific, and it doesn't always work. But that is the big challenge, is you've done your book, you're happy with it, It's got great reviews, and it's been edited really well, and the storyline is great. But what makes that then a bestseller? And that is the hard bit for every author, I think. I've got a classic work. It's an epic fantasy. If you like, imagine a mix-up of Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and Harry Potter. Okay, if we can get that into mind, that's my One Chronicles that I've written. Now, it would be great. I've always had in my mind, I want it to be either a film or a TV series. And that is another big challenge, is trying to get producers to look at this and say, yeah, you know, this could be a really good series. Let's put it into production. It's all based down to who you know. I mean, absolutely. If the right person can put it on the desk of an A-list producer who they know, and they will read it on their behalf, it's like winning the lottery, you know. And so that's the other challenge I find where I am with the One Chronicles. Although I've now had success. I think last time we spoke, I was having my very first meeting with some producers, and that was actually really good. And it's moving on. Looks like we're going to be signing it up. So I'm quite happy about that. I'm going to go to America. So there you go. That's all cropping up. So.
Wow, congratulations, Michael. And yeah, so now it's being adapted to a TV series. Is that correct?
Yeah, but you know what? Have you ever been to see a film? If you've read the book first of a film, and then you go and see the film and you think, you know, that is nothing like the book. Why is it quite different? Now I know, because I've had to adapt my screen writing skills as well, together with a very good award-winning screenwriter, an American gentleman who's on board with me. And we've written this, screenwritten this pilot series. It's got the same characters in, but the story has had to change a little bit to make it more interesting to look at as a visual thing. You can't just get the pages and stick them on a screen so people can read them. So now I understand, because now I'm in this position where we've had to make it more exciting visually. And it's been a challenge, and but we've got there.
And because we are talking about the One Chronicles, can you tell us a little bit about these books?
Yeah, well, always at the back of my mind, and even, I mean, I've written lots of children's books, and the idea with all the books I write is to hopefully get people's awareness on what we're doing with our planet. I mean, our planet's a beautiful planet, and of course, you know, politics, greed, and money are starting to sort of wither away our planet. And it's funny because we humans call this place that you are, where I am, and everybody looking at this is our home. But why are we treating it so badly? I mean, it's where we live. We must look after it. So that's always been a background little element, not only in all my children's books, but also comes into the One Chronicles. So we have planet Earth, and it's doing really badly now because we're in the future, about 80 years from now, and things are pretty bad. The ice, the poles have melted, and the water's coming up. And the elves notice this. They've been observing this for a while, and they've finally decided that they've got to help us to put our planet back. And so they introduce themselves to us. Now, we have the elves who are, you know, 3 million years ahead of us in terms of our evolution, but we all come together. Now, there is a love story in this. You have to have a good love story, you know. And if you've ever watched, for example, West Side Story or Romeo and Juliet, which it's based on. So we have the elves and we have the humans, and we don't quite trust each other. But I have a general, an English general, who falls madly in love with an elf scientist, a very beautiful elf. And they want to come together, but the elves and the humans are trying to pull them apart. But you know, love is very strong, and in the end it will succeed. And so that is the basis that's running all the time in the story. But then we are introduced to all sorts of magical things. There's a very powerful one called Elvina, and the elves allow us to use it to help our planet. But guess what? The baddies in the rest of the cosmos also want this wand. So we're forever in battles trying to prevent it being taken. So, and that's just like a little insight into what's happening. It's a lot more complex, but it doesn't look it when you're watching the series. It will all come into and make sense when you're watching it.
It's an epic fantasy book.
It's hard to find a term that fits the book, because again, for all authors that are watching this, trying to decide what your book comes into is difficult. In fact, I've been told that my book is epic high fantasy. I mean, you know, what does that all really mean? To me, it's just an adventure involving humans and elves, but it's actually an epic high fantasy. So there you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and every time that something new happens, we try to find a name for that. But I think in the end, it's all fantasy.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's general fantasy. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. I'm quite happy with that.
And in your opinion, Michael, what makes a good epic fantasy book, or what makes a good fantasy book?
Well, I think it's what I try to achieve when I've been writing mine. And that is that you start at the beginning of a chapter and it's got to be something there to catch your eye. And then the world building, the characters have got to be exciting enough for you to want to go on this adventure with them. And then when it comes to the end of the chapter, it wants to leave you wanting something. So you can't just stop there. You turn to the next chapter to see what happens. It's making all the characters highs and lows and making it exciting. And it's a bit like going for a ride on a roller coaster. I don't know if they call that the same in America, up and down these roller coasters. And it's exciting, and you're gripping on like this, and it makes your heart beat fast. So writing a book, particularly for readers, I would like to think that I've given them a ticket. That is, the book is also the ticket for a ride on my roller coaster, so they can go up and down and enjoy that book. And you've got to have incidents that happen that you don't expect, because that's life. Things can happen in life and you never expect them. It's like, even the terrible war in Ukraine. I mean, a year ago, I would never have dreamed it was going to happen. And look at it now. And where's it going to end? We don't know. In a way, it's like a book. It's a horror story, not an epic fantasy. It's a horror story. But you know what I mean? It's this idea of writing things in your subject matter that is going to catch people's eyes and minds and make them want to carry on reading and see what happens next.
Mm-hmm. And are you planning to start writing screenplays?
No, do you know what? It's a skill. Writing a screenplay is a skill. I went to University of Kent in England, and I did a short course on screenwriting, but it's so difficult. And the trouble with screenwriting is it is a lot more regimentated. In other words, you have rules that you have to follow. And as I said earlier, I'm a pantser. I can't work with rules like that. I want to sit down and just write. Mm-hmm. So I will leave that to my friend. He's called Robert General. He's an award-winning screenwriter, and he's brilliant. He'll ask me, what's happening in my mind. If I can explain it to him, I'll tell him. And then next minute he'll come back and it's written out as a screen written piece and it's perfect. So it's a skill. I don't think I will go into screenwriting. I'd rather write more books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always heard that it's very difficult. Like, let's say that it's a 400 pages book or 200 page book in 30 minutes, 1 hour movie or 2 hours movie. It's really very difficult.
It's very difficult. In fact, it works out when you're screenwriting something that 1 page is 1 minute on screen. You mean an A4. So we will be aiming, we've got it now, but it's around about 60 pages for the first pilot episode, which is an hour long.
All your 4 books will become this series. I mean, you are going to write more books for this series, the One Chronicles, or you are going to these 4 books will become the complete series?
I think so, because actually, because we started on this screenwriting journey, I had to I've reread my own books quite a number of times now, even though I know everything's happening. It's just a good reminder for me. And I've put a lot of information in there. Now, if you go and see a producer and you say, look, here is a pilot, I've got a series of books, a trilogy, and this is the pilot, they'll say, fine, but I want to see some more episodes in your mind already. They don't want just a great pilot. They want to know if you can sustain it.
Yeah, and 47 episodes is quite a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot there. So it's enough for a few series. So I can that bit of it is easy for me. With me and my 6-year-old boy's mind, full of imagination, I find that is my skill. I can just write it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is it's a skill and is a lot of, I think you were very, very creative, Michael. I'm sure you were. And I would like to ask you about your first book, which is entitled Just 5 More Minutes. Can you tell us a little bit about your first book?
Yeah, in fact, it's that first book in a way that got me into writing. And this is going to sound quite shocking for lots of people, but 16 years ago, my wife had gone out one morning on a sunny Sunday morning for a walk, and she was attacked and murdered. She actually died 9 days later, and I was left with a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old boy. So you never know what you are going to do or how you will cope with it in those situations till it happens. I would say that what can help people is your past life, your experiences you've had. Now, I went to a boarding school because my parents worked in Africa. So for the education, I went to a boarding school, which is quite strict. It taught me to face up to problems, how to overcome them, and made me a very practical man. And that was very helpful for me to deal with it. The other thing is that I'm also a Buddhist. I live by Buddhist principles. So that Buddhism also came into the way that I cope with it. And I just sat down one day and decided to write the book. I didn't plan anything. I came up with just titles for the chapters, like The Police, The Murder Trial, The Boys at School, that's all. And I sat down and it just came out of my heart and I wrote it as I felt. Now, the first half of the book the whole book itself has become a bestseller and travels around the world now. But what people really like about the book is the second half, because I give lots of little hints and tips on how to cope with things in your life. And it doesn't matter what you are or where your background is. If you're in a stage where you're unhappy, then there's things in this book that can help you. Looking at it in a different way. One of the ways is, as a Buddhist, we always believe that nothing is permanent. Me speaking now to you, where you live, and everybody else who's maybe going to be watching this or listening to this, one day you won't be where you are. You won't be in the same house. We one day won't be here. That tells you that everything moves on. And if you think and get that in your head, that everything moves on, then if you're in a really difficult spot, then you'll find it starts to help you work your way out of that hole. And I've had, even now, I get emails from people that were reformed drug addicts, people that had contemplated suicide, people that were alcoholics and now reformed. And it's amazing how people have said that, there's been something in that book that has helped them. And, when I wrote the book, in a way, it was for me, it helped me. But also, I said, if I can help one person, I'll be really happy. But it's gone on to help thousands and thousands of people. So that's amazing to me. I mean, that's just unbelievable. I remember once going into Manchester, because I did an audio book of it, and it won America's independent audio book competition, because I narrated it as well. And I remember during the recording of that, I went into Manchester, very close to me, and I'm in this taxi, and there's a Jamaican taxi driver. And we were chatting, and he says, "What you doing?" I said, "I'm going to make this recording of just 5 more minutes." And he said, "What's it about?" So I told him. He said, "Oh, I'm really sorry." He says, "Yes, my wife's is going to be having a mastectomy, and I'm really upset about it, and we don't know if the cancer is going to be still there." And I said, yeah, I said whatever I could to placate him, but I had some of my books. So I said, "Look, please give your wife one of these books. Just see if it may help her to overcome what's going to be coming." And about 3 months later, I had a very nice letter from this wife of this taxi driver to say that how the book had helped to keep positive, and that she had a mastectomy, but it had all been cleared and she was living a wonderful life. So it's things like that make it all worthwhile, And so whenever I go away, I always have that book with me to hand out if I feel some. But I mean, it's just a story too. It's a real and honest story that people can read.
Mm-hmm. And wow, Michael, I can't imagine how life has to go on when you lose your soulmate. Or that has been very difficult, but you are helping other people.
Yeah. And another nice thing about it all was that my wife, Jackie, was a very generous person,
Mm-hmm.
And when it came towards the end, I was approached by someone who was what they call a transplant coordinator, and said, "Would Jackie like to donate any organs, do you think?" I said, "Oh, she most definitely would." Now, this lady came to me a short while afterwards and said, "Look, there's a young man, he's 32, he's got a liver disease, he's going to be 2 weeks off dying. Would Jackie have liked to donate? Could she donate the liver, you see?" And I said, "I'm sure she would be the best thing ever." So donated the liver. And then it was about 3-4 months later, I got letters via this lady from his parents, grandparents, his fiance, his best friends, and it's this gift of life. And this young man is alive today through the tragedy of something that happened with somebody else. And that is, that's very powerful. And it's humanity at its best. And it's things like that make me smile. And there's 2 other people alive today too, because they had a kidney each. So You know, 3 people are alive out of what happened. And that Jackie would, I'm sure she's smiling now down on me.
She is, for sure. She is. Michael, where can our viewers find you, and what you would like to tell them about why they should read your books?
Well, certainly the one place to get hold of me, it's got all my contact details on it, all my social media details, is my website, which is www.thewand.me. So that's www.thewand.me. And if you go on there, you can see all the other little bits of videos that we've done, and all the books and all the children's books. And it's trying to write books that help. This, I have to be careful how I say this, not educate people, because all people are clever, but just to remind them that maybe we just got to pay a bit more attention to looking after our planet, to doing an act of random kindness. There's nothing wrong in that at all. And actually it can make you feel really nice and help somebody. And they then will help somebody else. So it's this knock-on effect. It's like a ripple. If you throw a stone in the pond and the ripples start to work their way outwards. So yeah, it's just to be nice, you know, and be nice to people and help people.
It's the butterfly effect.
Yeah, exactly.
So Michael, thank you very much. And I really would like you could come back. Please promise that when your series is playing, let us know that we are going to be able to watch it. And thank you again for your time and for staying here with us today.
Well, it's a pleasure, and it's always nice to meet somebody who's even nicer than me, and it's lovely to meet you. And each time we meet and we chat, I feel like I've known you for so long, and we fall into this friendship really nicely. So thank you too, Lucia. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel the same, Michael. Thank you very much.